The concept of micropayments was a large part of it. The idea that people could make small payments online, and in the world of social media, this could be a better way of monetizing content, delivering content to people. That then led on to video that could be funded.
Let's do something special today. GM, and welcome back to the NFT and Web3 Insider podcast. Today, again, an English episode, but because we have a very special guest, if you are looking for the German summary, please keep your eyes open. It will be published within the next days, so make sure you subscribe to the podcast. But today we are really doing something special because we are launching an exclusive NFT podcast on a decentralized platform to explore the experiences of creators and listeners in Web3. And that means you can buy this podcast episode as an NFT on excalibur.fm. If you are curious how this works and about how blockchain, NFTs and Web3 can revolutionize the way we create, share and monetize content, then listen into my conversation with Simon Smith. Simon is founder of Excalibur, and we talk about his journey, specifically why decentralized content is important and relevant, and how blockchain can add value, and what it actually takes to participate. By the way, all the revenues from this podcast episode will be donated to our friends at 8drop. So actually doing something good, and we would be really, really grateful for your support on this. You find all the links in the show notes. And now, without further ado, let's dive in. Let's go. Simon, welcome to the NFT Web3 Insider podcast. I'm so happy to have you here, and we've got some interesting stuff to talk about. So really looking forward to this.
Hey, Fabian, thank you very much for the invitation. It's great to be here. Looking forward to a good chat about Web3 and NFTs.
So for people that don't know you, maybe you can introduce yourself just in a few words. Where are you? Who are you? Where are you? What are you doing? What are you building? So
Okay, yeah, that's going to be challenging in just a few words. Yeah, but so I'm based in London. Have been in crypto for quite a while now. First started buying Bitcoin in 2013, but in the last couple of years, I've got really very interested in Web3, in what the technology can do in terms of the use case for a new way of distributing and monetizing media on the internet and digital media. It just seems to me that we can have a much better system than we currently have with the Web2 environment. So I'm working hard to build an application called Excalibur, which is all about Web3 media and enabling creators to get paid directly using cryptocurrencies and avoiding the middlemen of the advertising platforms who probably take most of the money that creators get. And they seem to get a very small percentage of 1 cent per stream of whatever they do on those platforms. So yeah, I mean that's where we're at. That's what I'm doing.
So you're really into building and also like using Web3 for building great things. When we go back a little bit, is there a moment, because 2013, it's pretty early, right, for Bitcoin, and also for Web3, you've been in this whole space for quite some years. Were there special moments where you would say, okay, this was like the lightning struck, and this was the moment where you've like wanted to explore the space first for Bitcoin back then, but also for Web3? Were there like moments where you can say, okay, this was really kind of a key moment for going in deeper and or understanding the concept a little bit more? Do you had this kind of experiences, or was it more like one thing came to the other?
Yeah, I think for me the journey weirdly I think actually began before cryptocurrency was really created. I think in the early days of the internet, there was always that question of how it was going to monetize through the .com boom. It was always that question of how were these companies ever going to become profitable. And there was this generalist idea there that they would be able to profit from advertising, but no companies really seemed to be able to do it. But with the advent of Web 2, which was really kind of around 2000, when companies like Facebook and Google started to monetize through advertising. The thing that they did differently was pay-per-click. So they were enabling click-through links where the customer data was passed through to the advertiser. So they were not just directing customers to advertisers' websites, they were also selling data on the user at the same time. So that ultimately became the business model of Web2 companies like Facebook, where they created a portal where people could communicate with each other and share photos with each other, which on the face of it looked very kind of social. But there was always the question of how do they monetize, how are they making money out of people? We all know now that they were making money out of us selling our data, but at the time, people didn't know that. People were not really aware that that's what was really going on. So, we all just started to use those applications. But I mean, at the time, I read 1984, when I was quite young. So it was kind of instilled in me this possibility that one day we would end up with a very authoritarian state that would be watching our every move and using that to control us in some kind of very, very dark kind of way. So as I saw this new technology emerge, I felt quite uncomfortable with the fact that the predictions of George Orwell in the book 1984 were looking like they were coming true. So yeah, it was slightly kind of worrying, but at the same time, it was very difficult to see how we could avoid such a situation because advertising was the way that the internet would monetize. The internet was obviously an amazing innovation for communication, enabling people to communicate peer-to-peer in the way they've never done before, sharing photos, sharing computer programs, sharing music. It was a real innovation. It was just a question of how does the economics work within this system that appeared to be failing. So once I really started to understand Web3 as being this new system whereby people could pay each other directly and a creator could be paid without the middleman of an advertising platform, that's where it really started to get interesting for me. So we had the NFT boom, which obviously was in many ways quite ridiculous. There were lots of JPEGs being sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. There was this nominal idea of a community behind those JPEGs, but in reality, were people really getting value for what they paid for those? What was it? Most of it hype? Probably was. In reality, we were testing the technology, though, because this was a technology that enabled people to pay directly for single items of media, which were JPEGs. But obviously, those digital files could also be songs or films or computer games, maybe even open source code. So yeah, there was various ways in which digital files could actually be transferred between people. And we could start to use this new innovation of cryptocurrency, which is ultimately a native currency for the internet. That's what the real opportunity was, because prior to any form of crypto, in order to make a payment on the internet, you needed to use Visa or MasterCard. And obviously, you needed to have a merchant account set up with one of the big companies there, and the minimum transaction fees were at least 20 cents, sometimes more than that, depending on how well you knew how well the merchant was known by the payment processor. But ultimately, yeah, it wasn't very efficient, certainly not for small payments, what they call micropayments. And it would make a concept like crowdfunding of media, where you might have a song that multiple people paid a small amount of money for, or even a podcast that multiple people paid a small amount of money for, just couldn't be done with Visa or MasterCard. So with cryptocurrency, this new concept of crowdfunding of media became possible. The idea of paying for content became possible. But yeah, I think my background is really economics. So for me, that appears to be where the problems are with Web 2 are in the economics, and that's where the opportunity is with Web 3 in terms of the fact that we can now have a new way of rewarding creators and a new way of distributing content in a decentralized way. I suppose the only thing I'd add there is one of the features of that economic system in Web 2 was that any advertiser would make a better return on their advertising spend by being with one of the larger platforms. So, for example, with Facebook, you have so much more user data on that big platform. You can more effectively target your advertising to particular cohorts of people, maybe defining by sex or demography or location, and you can actually get a much higher return on your investment for doing that. So it meant that most of the money went to those larger platforms, Facebook, Google, Amazon, And yeah, that's how we ended up with this very centralized, very dominated internet, which was not what anyone really planned from the beginning. It's kind of like we sleepwalked into it in a weird kind of way. Certainly, Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the internet, actually came out on TV and said, "Yeah, that's not what I wanted. That was not what I intended." So yeah, it's interesting, but yeah, we're certainly shifting back in the direction of decentralization now with Web3.
That's exactly what Web3 is promising, right? And the solution to the problems you just mentioned. And I really liked how you phrased the crazy, like 1 or 2 years we had with NFTs, that it's basically was like a kind of experiment for using this technology to really build those or build this solution for the decentralized creator economy. So how would you see go things from here? We had this crazy times. Now my feeling it's a bit more about like the builders are building and we're building really solutions, not just like putting 10k PFP NFT collections out there and hope that somebody buys for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So how do you things go from here? Are more people are more creators? Like the which comes first? Are more people looking for new ways to don't sell their data on the big tech platforms, or is it more the creators? Or how would you see like also the change happening from this Web2 tech, which is we have like in every place right now, right? And you just mentioned it's basically what Orwell said already in 1984, but it's not the state right now. It's becomes big companies. How do you see this is transforming into the Web3 and the how do people get to use it? Does it get easier? Because right now it's still a little bit, let's say complicated to start in Web3, right? You need a wallet and you need to understand blockchain a bit, or at least cryptocurrencies and stuff like that. So what is your best guess how things move from here?
There's a few things. I think there's 3 distinct avenues for Web3 that I see being real opportunities. The first one is the idea of a smart contract as a revenue splitting or kind of royalties management system. So if you decide to create some content, maybe a podcast, and you want to mint that into an NFT, then you might be doing that in cooperation, perhaps with 2 other people. And you decide you want to split the revenue equally between 3 of you. And so when you upload that content and mint it as an NFT, smart contract can contain information about where the revenue should go. So it can specify 3 wallet addresses that you and your 2 colleagues have specified at the beginning. And then any copy of that NFT that is sold will automatically be distributed to those 3 wallet addresses. So if you look at how we used to do that before Web3, how we used to do that in the old economy, if 3 people made a creative project together, what would ordinarily happen would be they would be taking cash for it. Maybe they were a band making music or selling CDs. There would be one person taking the money, and they would have the responsibility to distribute that money equally between the 3 people. Sadly, in reality, many people never get paid in creative projects, and the money just never gets through. On a larger scale project, if people are making a blockbuster film, then obviously a company will be set up with legal contracts, an accounts department, invoicing, chasing people for money, all those fun kind of things that people love to do, but obviously are very expensive. But in that situation, the participants are more certain of getting the money. If they don't, then they need to take it through the courts and spend money on some very expensive lawyers to actually get the money that they were owed. But there is a system there. But it looks like with Web3, just having that royalty management system of NFTs could be a far, far cheaper and far more certain, immutable system for people to get automatically paid with much less friction, much lower transaction costs. So that's the first one that I see. The second one I see is NFTs as gated communities. So clubs potentially. So that's what people started to experiment with the JPEGs. The Bored Apes was a classic one, where people that owned a Bored Ape would go out in the media and rave about how amazing the community was and how many famous people were part of it, and then they would swiftly go and sell their JPEGs on to somebody else that would pay more than they did to discover how wonderful that community really was inside. Yeah, I mean, this was the NFT boom. This can exist, on a more realistic scale. So maybe a successful podcaster, Joe Rogan, for example, if he decided to do an NFT issuance, he might just do a collection of JPEGs, and people that wanted to be part of the community that he creates might go out and buy those JPEGs, or he might create an audio NFT, and this could be the NFT, and well, it could be an audio file in which it describes the objectives of that community. So then people that are buying into that, they might be able to listen to that content for free, but if they want to own the member card, then they need to buy that NFT, which is the audio file, and that gives them access to an online space that is gated. So the digital record that is the NFT gives them access to a gated chat room, maybe access to specific content that isn't accessible to everybody else. But they have that ability to join a community, be a part of something, speak to people that are of a like mind, potentially make friends, potentially speak directly to the creator, whom they're ultimately funding with that purchase of that community token or that membership card. So it might be less relevant for someone like Joe Rogan than for somebody who is perhaps at an earlier stage of their career. They've got their 1,000 true fans, and the fans firmly believe that creator will become ever more famous over the next few years. So by joining the community, they're funding that creator at their earlier stage, where they're probably getting very small revenue from Spotify or YouTube. But having that money means that they can be full-time in their creative focus. And as they become more famous, more successful, the audience member has the option to stay with that community and brag to all of their friends about how they were there at the beginning, because they've got their POAP, their proof of attendance and participation, that shows that they were not one of the Johnny-come-latelys, and that they were there at the beginning when it was grassroots and that they supported that creator. But maybe they've moved on to new things and they want to sell that token on to somebody else who is now more enjoying the more mature flow of creativity that's coming out of that creator, and they want to go and find another grassroots singer or artist or podcaster or author, and anyone that's doing any kind of creative thing that can be turned into an NFT. They might want to go and support something new, or just find somebody new, be a talent scout, buy that early stage token. So yeah, that's another potential use case. I think there's multiple different ways that these things can be used, but I think the other one that potentially hasn't really been experimented yet, just because we don't really have enough data, is curation. So if you look at the way that content is curated on Web 2, they're looking at things like number of likes, they're looking at number of shares, they're looking at how much advertising revenue is generated from people that looked at that content. So if a bit of content maybe somehow subliminally gets you into a state where you want to buy something, then that might be more promoted to you than other content. Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but yeah, Web 2 fundamentally is about delivering content that will get people to engage and give more attention. So sometimes that content is more addictive and maybe not of the highest quality. Whereas if you have a curation system that is promoting content to people that other people have actually chosen to pay for, again, this comes down to economics. If you look at digital content as being content that every incremental copy really costs virtually nothing to create. So this is in contrast to back in the days when people sold physical books, CDs, or videos. Each incremental copy would have a cost to produce. But now we're in a situation where content can be proliferated in the digital realm for free. So we potentially need a new economic model whereby people can consume content for free and they can share it with their friends. But they have the option then to pay in a donation or to buy the NFT, and that can feed into an algorithm which potentially will deliver a better selection of content to people that are coming from the outside, perhaps haven't spent the time researching the new content that's available, and they are having the crowdsourced intelligence of all the people that have looked at the content and made a decision about whether they want to pay for it or not. And I mean, as I say, this is probably a very early stage in this process, and it may take many years before we have enough data and have really cracked the use case on how to get people to pay for content and how to really make people feel part of a community. And I think that's where the real power of Web3 comes in, when ultimately the end user that is experiencing maybe something like YouTube, but each time they look at the homepage, they're getting an amazing selection of content that they really want to watch. That's potentially a very powerful differentiator from Web2.
As you are a podcast enthusiast yourself and you hear podcasts all the time, is that where the idea to Excalibur came from? Or can you take us in this process where you said, okay, I want to build something there, I want to build something for the creator, I want to exactly solve the problems we talked about earlier, and then you thought about, oh, podcast would be nice? Or was there like the process and you looked into different kind of media? How was Excalibur, like the idea came to life?
Yeah, I think the concept of micropayments was a large part of it. The idea that people could make small payments online, and in the world of social media, this could be a better way of monetizing content, delivering content to people. That then led on to the idea of video that could be funded. I think the issue with video is probably that it would require some form of censorship. But the spoken word, I think, really should be free. And also my personal interest in podcasts, the fact that I enjoy podcasts, probably what really kind of made us decide to focus on podcasts for Excalibur, I think, as we go on. I mean, we have some music artists on there as well. I think audiobooks are potentially a good opportunity. Certainly people are more used to paying for audiobooks than they are for podcasts. So that could be one of the ways in which we really are effective in living the Web3 dream and getting people to monetize directly for their content. But yeah, I think we're still in a process. I think the process of figuring out how to use this very early stage technology is still there. I do remember when mobile phones really first got going, smartphones really got going, and people were creating apps, and they didn't know how to monetize apps. There wasn't room on the screen for an ad, so they didn't know what to do, how to monetize. And when you look at how that has transformed these days with all the in-app purchases that you get, really, I think there is always a way. Human ingenuity finds a way. So yeah, I think we are still testing the tools. Excalibur is a test using smart contracts. We have that revenue split available, which for me is always the core use case. Whenever people say to me, what is the point of Web3, that's the one I start with, because it's very hard to disagree with the concept of that, at least. That the barrier is that in order to get people to pay for that digital content, they have to go and buy some Solana on an exchange and then put it into a wallet and connect with the website. All of that is a technical challenge. It's an emotional challenge. It's a financial challenge. There's various levels of challenge there that make it more difficult. So, we have the bare bones of the technical functionality. We have a fully working product whereby people can pay in Solana for NFTs of podcasts or audiobooks or songs. I think Solana doesn't have the best reputation in the world. So our journey is continuing. I think, we have, seen Solana 18 months ago was probably the best micropayment technology there was. It wasn't entirely decentralized, but it was cheap and fast. It had smart contracts, NFTs. So we decided on that one at the time. But with now what I'm seeing with the maturity of the Lightning payment network on Bitcoin, and the technology of ordinals, BRC20s and now BRC69s, we're seeing NFTs on Bitcoin that are getting cheaper and cheaper. with a very low cost, fast payment system that is far more scalable than anything any of the altcoins have in reality, because the more people that join a blockchain, the more expensive it gets and the slower it gets. But with a layer 2, the more people that join and become nodes, the faster it will get and the cheaper it will get. So I'm really very enthusiastic about what's happening in Bitcoin, and we are in the process of going multi-chain with Excalibur. So we will be able to join that enormous community that are the Bitcoin enthusiasts. But yeah, I certainly have been on a journey here where through listening to podcasts and educating myself and reading books, for example, the Bitcoin Standard is a real classic one on that path. But I think once people read that, the penny can really drop for them about why Bitcoin is actually very different from every other cryptocurrency and potentially is the one that will have a long-term store of value feature to it, whereas ultimately, many of the altcoins can offer much more utility than Bitcoin currently has on it, but they will ultimately be usurped by new projects that have even more utility than they do, and ultimately their coin may not have any value if people move en masse to the faster, cheaper, more best bells and whistles cryptocurrency that's just been invented, whereas Bitcoin will always be Bitcoin. It will always be that one project that has no authority. It has no company that runs it. It has no marketing budget. It's simply run by the network of people that want to use the network. And it is the most secure, most decentralized currency of them all. And it can't be taken away from you unless you give someone your private keys. So, yeah, for us, I think, building, yes, never give away your private keys, but always keep your coins not on an exchange. That's another thing you should do. So then you need to store your private keys in a way that you can find them. Again, these things are challenging. This is the early days of a technology. It's a bit like trying to use email in 1990 when you had to be a Unix programmer in order to do that. In a terminal, you had to write out the email in Unix commands. It was difficult, but we now have a much better use case for that. So I think that's where we're going to go with Web3. But yeah, knowing what I know now, I think Bitcoin really is going to be the one ring that rules them all. And we are going to see amazing Web3 use cases appearing on that chain. And for anyone that's interested in exploring that more, I recommend you look at Nostr. That's Nostr, which is a protocol for decentralized social media. And that one is only really kind of been going for, as far as I can tell, less than a year. But in the last 6 months, it's really gone from something that was very difficult to use to something that's just quite difficult to use. So yeah, it is still difficult to use. We are still early. But Jack Dorsey from Twitter, I think he funded that one to the tune of 5 million. But it was built by a guy apparently called Fiat Jeff. So yeah, it's very much deep in the Bitcoin world of coders, people that build stuff because they like it, because they want it to exist, not because they feel like they can make a fortune and go and live in the Bahamas. Making a fortune living in the Bahamas hasn't worked out that well for cryptocurrencies, has it really? Particularly if you've got curly hair and you like polyamorous relationships. But I do think we have a real opportunity still with what we're doing here, and Nostr to me is very exciting. You can pay other people with what they call Zaps, which is Bitcoin Lightning. Obviously, very small amounts of money can be paid. That is the kind of crowdfunding of content that we hope for with Web3. So, yeah, I recommend exploring that. There's applications that sit on top of Nostr. The one on your phone is called Damus, and there's Coracle on the web browser. So, yeah, it's a protocol which no one owns. Nostr is unowned, and it's just created as a kind of want to exist kind of platform. Or it is just a protocol really. It's a bit of software that exists across the relays. Anyone can run a relay. So it is decentralized social media. No one can actually be shut down from it. Content can't be taken down. So be careful what you post on there, because you can't delete it basically. So yeah, that's the nature of this new platform. But I'm quite enthusiastic about where it could go. I think it's got real opportunities.
Yeah, I can see you're really deep in that space, and also with the values it brings and it has in decentralization. And it's also interesting that you like going full circle now to being in Bitcoin early already, and then now building in Web3, and this going back to Bitcoin as a, let's say, platform as well, or as a tool and as an environment, because it makes so much sense, and it's possible now, right? And with what you just said, like with ordinals and BRC20, we've seen taking also the Bitcoin blockchain ecosystem taking a leap. So for me as a creator, how would it look like? How can I publish on Excalibur, for example, on right now Solana, maybe later Bitcoin, or how would the process be like if I'm interested in using Excalibur?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not that difficult. I think whenever you use a new application, it requires a bit of time and effort. I do remember for quite a long time when Instagram was first around, I never actually used Instagram because I just couldn't be bothered to sit down and work it out, And they say, well, how do you use Instagram? And they, well, you just use it. You just sit there and open it up, and it's intuitive. So, yeah, I think with anything that's new, it's always going to take a bit of effort. But yeah, if you go to excalibur.fm, we've spent a lot of time trying to make it as easy as possible. But yeah, if you're a creator, on that front page there, you can upload your MP3 file. You can give it a title, a description, a thumbnail image that will sit there with your NFT. You can specify your Solana wallet address. You can also put a Bitcoin wallet address if you want to enable Bitcoin payments. And yeah, you basically upload your file, click on publish, it mints as an NFT, and you get a link that you can share through your social channels, through WhatsApp, through email, through anyone you want to listen to your content. Yeah, that's how it works. They can then mint a copy of that NFT. If they do that, the money that they pay will go directly into your Solana wallet. At some point, we expect to take 5% transaction fees, but we are so early at the moment that we really just take nothing at all. So barring a small transaction fee on the Solana network, most of the money that you earn will go directly to you.
That's great. That's awesome, and it's not so difficult. So, and the good news is we are not talking about this. We're like doing this and trying things out. So, this podcast episode, wherever, dear listener, you are listening now, is on Excalibur as well. The link is in the show notes, but it's also of course shared. And now for maybe the listeners, for the audience, how is the process? How can they right now, for example, mint the NFT to this particular episode? And just to mention all the money you send over, it's a donation, so it's not going to our wallets. It's really doing something good with our partner Airdrop. And so if you want to use that platform, if you want to try out new things, if you want to support the podcast, please head over to Excalibur. But Simon, how does the process for the fans look like? What do they need to do? What can they expect? How does it work?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you're listening, you want to click on that link in description, then that will take you directly to the NFT of this podcast. From there, if you want to mint the NFT, you'll need to connect a Solana wallet. So that could be Phantom or Glow, and you need to have some Solana in that wallet. So if you are a crypto person already, you might have some Solana, or you might be able to trade some of your other coins into Solana and make that purchase of the NFT. Or if you're not a crypto person at all, then you probably know somebody that is. You could send them a text message and offer to buy them a beer in exchange for a bit of Solana to come on here and buy your first NFT. If they are a crypto person, they'll probably be so fantastically happy that they've gotten you into crypto by giving you your Solana and take you out for a beer and discuss it. Yeah, that's probably going to be a wonderful thing for you both. But yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult. I can't promise you the NFT will end up being worth a lot of money, but we all hope that Fabian will go on to be a superstar podcaster, and you can brag about the fact that you were there at the beginning.
Yeah, so easy as that. I think we've covered a lot of topics, I think Excalibur is great because it's you're basically you're practicing what you preach, right? And you're going this way, you're building stuff. And I think Web3 is about building right now, and we will have solution, and it will get easier, right? And yeah, just as you mentioned in the early days. So when you first used Instagram, or back in the day when we didn't have had apps on the phone, and I still remember my roommate back then I was so excited when I had this like WAP functionality on my phone, and I could like connect it to the internet, and he was like,
I remember that, yeah. WAP, yeah, early days of getting data on your phone, yeah.
and it took ages, and he was like, what do you want? Why just tell me why. And I was like, hey, it's the future. And I mean, we we always remember this because he was really like, he didn't get it at all, and I was so excited. So the worlds were clashing. And of course today he owns an iPhone, he's like always on, he has his apps, and he was like, okay, I remember back then I didn't believe that it's of use, that you can use it for anything, and right now. And I think that's the same for Web3. Basically, it will get easier, there will be more use cases, there will be a lot of benefits, utilities. So that's what I think excites us to be in that space, and to build stuff, to put this content out. So just a few last questions. So of course I have to ask, why Excalibur? So can you tell us a little bit more about the name? It's so interesting. I mean,
so yeah, I mean, it's Excalibur is obviously the mythical sword that was part of the story of King Arthur. And King Arthur was a freedom fighter, and he had a round table where no one was the head of the table. That was part of the process. So the Knights of the Round Table with King Arthur. So it's a kind of decentralized concept of governance there that we have with the Web3 world. But also it's the concept of the sword that's in the stone, and that people were not able to pull out the stone. I think maybe a bit like the use case in the crypto world, where people are looking for that thing that they can pull out of this technology and make it work. So we're looking for the King Arthurs of the world to come and really build the effective use cases in this space, and they can wield the sword of freedom and lead us forward in this interesting space.
that's a great story. And I was expecting something really that you put some thoughts in there, because the name is so there is so much behind it. So thank you for telling us this story. And before we end this podcast episode, just the last question and the last word really to you. If you could give just like an advice, a question, or something you just want to tell our audience today, what would that be? So what would be your message out to the audience?
I think we covered a couple of really key ones there. Is don't give people your private key. Don't leave your coins on an exchange. If you don't have your private key, then it's not real crypto. They're not your coins. It's a key thing. Yeah, and I think, I don't know. I mean, let's explore this. Let's explore what proves to be a very exciting new technology, a whole new way to organize the internet, and potentially a whole new way to organize the world.
Thank you so much for all these insights, for building Excalibur. We put, of course, all the links in the show notes, so excalibur.fm, and also the links to you if people want to reach out. And yeah, Simon, thank you so much, and looking really forward to publishing this episode on Excalibur, and experimenting with the platform and trying out things. And people can come there as well. So looking forward to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fabian. It's been a wonderful time chatting to you today, and I wish you great success with your podcast.
Thank you. Until the next time, peace and out. Noch ein kurzes Schlusswort in eigener Sache. Wenn du im Bereich Web3 und Metaverse auf dem Laufenden bleiben möchtest, dann abonniere den Web3 Plus N Newsletter, denn dort bekommst du 3 Tipps, Anregungen oder Gedanken von mir und das N, die News der Woche, also einfach in Bullet Points ganz knapp und knackig zusammengefasst, alles, was gerade passiert. Du bekommst einen Einblick hinter die Kulissen und hast so aktuelle Entwicklungen des Web3 immer im Blick. Das Ganze direkt in deine Inbox, ohne 24/7 auf Twitter oder Discord aktiv sein zu müssen und damit in weniger als 5 Minuten pro Woche. Der Web3 plus N Newsletter, den Link findest du in den Shownotes. Und ja, wenn dir diese Folge gefallen hat, abonniere den Podcast, teile die Folge gerne mit Freunden oder auf Social Media und hinterlass eine Bewertung. Ich stecke sehr, sehr viel Energie und Herzblut in den Podcast und damit würdest du meinen Gästen und mir unglaublich weiterhelfen. Danke dafür, bis zum nächsten Mal. Peace and out.